Welcome to Mind Your Money. I'm Allie Canal, and this is Yahoo Finance's flagship personal finance show. Think of this as your financial toolbox. For the next 30 minutes, we'll give you the latest money news, cut through the jargon, and tap into expert advice, all designed to help you take control and build a stronger, healthier financial future. On today's show, student loan borrowers enrolled in the SAVE plan need to pay attention to a crucial August 1st deadline. We'll tell you why. And in the dog days of summer, we'll discuss ways to save money on your back-to-school shopping. Plus, Social Security checks are going paperless this fall. We have the details. As of August 1st, the Biden-era SAVE plan for student loan borrowers is entering a major transition. Interest-free forbearance, which has lasted around a year, is ending. That means if you're in the program, your loans will start accruing interest again, even if you don't need to make those monthly payments just yet. So what action do you need to take at this point, if any? Here to break it down is student loan expert Mark Kantrowitz. So Mark, if you're in the SAVE plan right now, what is going to happen to your loans?
Well, starting August 1st, they will start accruing interest, and that interest will be added to your loan balance. It won't be capitalized just yet, but you'll be in a general forbearance for at least another month. But you should consider switching into the income-based repayment plan so that those monthly payments count towards eventual forgiveness.
So you said you should expect to be in the forbearance period for at least another month. When should borrowers expect to start making payments again?
Well, the Trump administration has not yet said when that forbearance will end. Based on previous announcements from the Biden administration, it suggests that they'll restart in September, but we haven't had any information one way or another from the U.S. Department of Education.
Is there anything borrowers with loans outside of the SAVE plan need to be doing right now?
Well, there's several different income-driven repayment plans that are ending. It's not just the SAVE repayment plan, but any repayment plan that was based on income contingent repayment, such as the PAYE, the pay plan, and the repay plan, those will be ending. The income contingent repayment plan, they're going to start phasing that out because of the budget reconciliation bill. And in general, those don't count towards forgiveness of their own. The payments you make will count towards forgiveness under income-based repayment. So if you want to eventually receive forgiveness after 20 or 25 years, you need to switch into one of those repayment plans. There's a new repayment.
No, continue.
Okay, there's a new income-driven repayment plan called the WRAP plan that was introduced by this new legislation. We expect that it'll become available sometime this fall.
So how does WRAP stand up against some of the existing plans like SAVE? And I know you mentioned IBR. That's the interest or income-based repayment plan as well.
Right. So comparing WRAP with IBR, the monthly payments under WRAP are a little bit lower than under IBR if your income is lower than about $80,000. So if you're low or moderate income, you'll have lower payments. But the number of payments you have to make until the remaining debt is forgiven is 30 years, whereas IBR is 20 or 25 years, depending on whether you have loans from before July 1, 2014 or just afterwards.
And let's talk policy too. How does President Trump's bill change the student loan repayment system at this point?
Right. So for new borrowers, as of July 1, 2026, they will have only two repayment plans available. A standard repayment plan, which is more like an extended repayment plan. The higher your debt, the longer the repayment term that's available to you. If your debt's under $25,000, you'll have a 10-year repayment term, and it goes all the way up to a 25-year repayment term. The other repayment plan is the RAMP plan, which bases the payments on a percentage of your adjusted gross income, ranging from 1% to 10% as your income grows. If your income is over $100,000, you'll pay 10% of income towards payments on that debt. and the remaining debt will be forgiven after 30 years in repayment.
And when do these go into effect, these new plans under the Trump administration?
For new borrowers as of July 1, 2026, they will be in those repayment plans. They will also be phasing out the income contingent repayment plan through July 1 of 2028.
And then when you're talking to borrowers, what are some general tips when it comes to them paying back their student loans? And are there resources that people can turn to try and make this an easier process? Because it can be very complicated.
Well, they can talk to the college financial aid administrator at their college, who can provide them with some insights into these plans. It is going to be simpler in a way because currently there are a dozen different repayment plans, including as many as 4 different income-driven repayment plans, 2 extended repayment, 2 graduated repayment, and 1 standard repayment. So it is going to get simpler. But the only way to tell whether you're better off with the standard repayment plan or the wrap plan is to model it out for your own particular circumstances. There are very few rules of thumb that say which is better for you when.
All right, well, Mark, some great advice there. Thank you so much. And you can scan the QR code below to get more student loan content on the Yahoo Finance website. Well, Americans spent a total of $125 billion on back-to-school shopping last year. That's according to the National Retail Federation. And that number is expected to climb even higher in 2025. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate Federal Credit Union estimates the average family shells out nearly $600 per child each year from kindergarten through 12th grade. Joining me now is Casey Bond, Yahoo Finance personal finance editor. So, Casey, we were just going through some of those stats. I mean, back-to-school spending, clearly a big burden for many families out there. So what are some of the best ways to save this year?
Right. So one strategy you can try is buying in bulk. That's a great way to lower the cost per unit of certain items. It's particularly good for families that have multiple kids in school at the same time, or you can even coordinate with other parents in your child's class and kind of split up that cost. When it comes to tech in particular, buying a pre-owned or refurbished laptop or calculator is often a better option than buying new. You're going to shave quite a bit off of that purchase price. Many states also offer tax holidays. So this usually happens in August, sometimes late July, when the state will remove sales tax from a certain category of items for, say, a week. So time your shopping during these sales tax holidays, and you can save quite a bit of money on things like clothes and shoes and other back to school supplies. And then finally, lots of retailers offer student discounts, but it's not always obvious that they do. So when you're shopping, be sure to ask about those student discounts and see if you can shave even more off your final price.
Yeah, we love those discounts. And what are some of the most affordable retailers for back to school essentials? And are there any big store names that are offering some deals right now?
Yeah, so one study found that Walmart, their prices are about 60% less than the average. So that's a great option. Dollar General is also an affordable place to shop, particularly for writing and drawing supplies. And then Target as well is another great option.
And finally, Casey, for families looking to plan ahead, how can they start prepping now for the 2026 school year without breaking the bank?
Yeah, well, you can use this year's back to school shopping as a way to plan for next year and maybe do an even better job of fitting it into your budget. So be sure you save all of those receipts from your shopping this year so you can get an idea of how much you did spend. Then you can take that number, divide it by 12, and you'll know how much you need to set aside each month throughout this next year to meet that goal or that amount that you expect to spend. It's also a great idea to put your savings in a dedicated account, especially a high yield savings account. So while that money is sitting there waiting to be used next year, it's earning a competitive interest rate and your balance is growing even faster.
All right, Casey, thanks so much. Stay with me. We're talking Fed next. But for those of you watching, you can scan the QR code below for more savings tips on back to school shopping. Well, the FOMC's policy meeting kicks off next Tuesday with its interest rate decision coming Wednesday at 2 p.m. The Fed is expected to hold rates steady, but it could still impact your financial decisions. Yahoo Finance personal finance editor Casey Bond is still with me. So Casey, with rates where they are, is now a good time to sign up for a new high yield savings account or a CD? What should people keep in mind?
Yeah, so even though rates have been falling a bit over the last year and a half, they're still quite competitive by historical standards. And you can find a high yield savings account or CD that pays as much as 4% APY or more. So even if the Fed decides to hold its rates steady, that means you can still take advantage of these good rates today. High yield savings is great for flexibility. You can access your money whenever you need it. But if you want to put some money away for a little bit longer term, say 6 months to a year or two, locking in a CD will allow you to keep earning today's rates, even if the Fed does decide to lower rates later this year.
And like you were saying, interest rates still pretty competitive and still elevated out there. What advice do you have for people carrying credit card debt or considering a personal loan?
Yeah, so getting rid of that high interest debt is super important in a high interest rate environment. Definitely prioritize revolving debt, particularly credit cards, because those are going to have the highest rates right now. And even if that means you do need to take a step back on your savings goals, the interest rate you earn on savings or investments is probably not going to keep pace with the amount of interest you're paying on that debt. So definitely prioritize getting rid of the debt, and then you can ramp up your savings again.
And for those just getting started, maybe recent grads or folks at their first job, what's the smartest place to park your savings right now?
Well, like I mentioned, high yield savings accounts are very flexible. There's usually few to no fees, very low minimum balance requirements. And that's particularly at online banks. So if you're looking for, your first account where you want to set aside some cash and earn a great rate, take a look at some of those online banks and check out what types of high yield savings accounts they have. That's probably going to be your best option.
All right, Casey Bond, thank you so much. And you can scan the QR code below to learn more about the Fed and your money. Coming up on the other side of the break, changes to Social Security payments. Plus, we give you ways to save on your electric bill this summer and another edition of Ask Yahoo Finance Anything. I'll be joined by Decoding Retirement host Bob Powell. Stay tuned. Starting this fall, roughly 500,000 people who've been collecting their Social Security checks via mail are in for a change. Payments are set to go fully electronic starting September 30th. Joining me now with more, senior columnist Carrie Hannon. So Carrie, what's behind this change? I mean, probably a good idea. We're getting a little more technologically advanced here.
Yeah, exactly, Allie. This is something that the Social Security Administration has been talking about for decades. I'm not making that up. This is something that they've wanted. The president mandated this in March and said it was all going electronic September 30th. So no more paper checks for many people. And it does impact, a segment of the population. Most of us have access to electronic direct deposits, or the other option is having a debit card. And for many people, that's fine. But about 550,000 people, this is not going to impact. It's a small percentage, but it can have lasting impact for them and some hardship. The pros, as you just said, of course, it increases, the security of this transaction and also prevents fraud in many cases. The concern is for people who don't have banks. They're unbanked, or they live in a rural area where there is not great internet access and so forth. So those are some people that it can be concerning. Now, let's get this straight. Even though they're hardcore on we're all going electronic, there is still a process for people who need to have a waiver, who need to still have that paper check. And they're not touting it. Social Security is not making a big deal about this, but you can contact Social Security and you have to meet one of these certain criteria. You have to be over 90 or over. You have to have a mental incapacity of some kind, or be able to prove that you don't have the infrastructure for a safe, secure internet access where you live. So that's really what's happening here. And I think, it's noteworthy to say that there are ways around it, but you might have to go to a Social Security office, or you might have to just sit on that phone and wait to hear back from somebody.
That's interesting. And if you are part of that group that has been receiving paper checks, what are the options out there for getting those payments electronically, if that's possible for you?
Yeah, what the Social Security Administration wants you to go is to go to your what is called My Social Security account, which many people have been encouraged who are on Social Security to set these electronic accounts up in order to track their benefits and so forth. So if you can do that, if you have access to being able to go on electronically and you do have a paper check, now's your time to get to it, and you can just change your pay. Right there, you can give your bank information to make sure it's direct deposit, or if you need the debit account. But there is a very easy way online to make that adjustment so that they know where to send your check electronically.
Carrie, thank you so much. Very important information to know. And you can scan the QR code below to learn more about the changes to Social Security coming this fall. Well, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, last month was the third warmest June on record, and that trend is expected to continue. NOAA says there's less than a 1% chance that 2025 will not end up as the warmest year on record. And with the high heat comes high utility prices as Americans pump up that air conditioning. So what changes can you make in your home to help lower the bill? Joining me now is Angie Hicks, the co-founder of Angie. So let's start simple here, Angie. What are some quick, affordable upgrades homeowners can make today that could immediately lower their utility bills?
One of the easiest things they can do is to make sure that they're keeping curtains or shutters, blinds, window coverings closed in the heat of the day, especially where the sun's shining in, because we've all walked in that room where it's super hot because you've got that afternoon sun coming in. Keep that sun out. It's going to keep the room cooler. And then also ceiling fans. You might already have some in your house. Make sure they're running counterclockwise. And if you're considering adding them, that could be a nice addition, maybe in a bedroom where you want it to be a little cooler, for example.
And Angie, I hate to say it, but this one hits close to home. Most people don't think twice about their HVAC filters. How often should we actually be replacing them, and how big of a difference can that make?
It does. What it's going to do is replacing that filter is going to make the air conditioner just run much more efficiently. So anywhere from monthly to once a quarter, you should look and see what your system recommends, and then just put it on the calendar so you remember to do it. Super easy. I do mine myself. Everybody, I think you can probably do it yourself, and it's not an expensive item to pick up at the hardware store.
And when it comes to overall appliances, when does it make sense to upgrade, and how could switching to maybe Energy Star rated models actually save over time?
That's right. So if you're going to in the market to be replacing an appliance, be sure you're looking for that Energy Star rating, because that will help. You're going to get a newer model. It's going to be more efficient, and it's going to save you a little bit each month. Keep in mind your heating and cooling is your largest user of electricity in your house. So being very careful and paying attention to those is really important. That question about when to repair, when to replace, common question. So here's a good rule of thumb. If your appliance is halfway through its useful life, so most of them last, let's say 15 years. So if you're 8 years or more, and it's going to cost half as much to repair it as it will to replace, you're better off going ahead and replacing.
Okay, and I want to stick on that topic, because what should homeowners know before deciding to maybe replace their windows or upgrade insulation? And are there rebates or maybe tax incentives that consumers should be aware of so that they can take advantage of that?
Yeah, those are common things that you can get rebates for. So you do want to be checking either federal rebates, if your state offers them, be checking on that. Windows, insulation are very common items. And then also another thing to consider doing is, a lot of times we think about weather stripping in the winter. We're like, hey, I don't want my house to be drafty. Same problem in the summer. If it's 95 and humid and you've got air flowing through around your windows and doors, let's seal those up. And that's something that can be relatively inexpensive. I mean, again, if you're a good DIYer, it's something that you can do yourself, or you can hire a handyman that can come in and help you. But that is something that will help keep those drafts away and help you, you're not wasting that nice cool air you're paying for.
What about some good hygiene tips? Are there any overlooked habits or home maintenance routines that can make a big seasonal difference without costing a dime?
Yeah. One of the things that I would suggest that's often overlooked is the fact that a lot of us like to disguise our air conditioning unit outside. I mean, I know they're not the prettiest thing, but that actually is harmful to the air conditioner. You want good airflow around your air conditioner. So trim back landscaping, make sure it's free and clear around that, because it's going to pay off in the long run. And then also think about if you don't have a programmable thermostat, it might be something you want to consider, especially if you like to adjust your thermostat to, go warmer when you're not going to be home and then go lower when you're going to be there. It helps you remember because sometimes we forget those things. So that's another item you could have on the list.
All right, I'm taking notes here. Angie Hicks, thank you so much. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
It's time now for our weekly segment, Ask Yahoo Finance Anything. I'm joined now by Bob Powell, host of Yahoo Finance's Decoding Retirement video podcast. So it's only fitting that the questions are retirement focused. So Bob, first one to you here. Someone asks, I'm saving for retirement. Should I consider investing in crypto? And if so, what would the optimal allocation be for it to have a meaningful effect on the risk-adjusted performance of my retirement fund? Bob, what's your response there?
So Allie, that's a mouthful of a question, but figuring out the optimal allocation for crypto is a complex question with no single definitive answer. It depends on your risk tolerance, your investment objective, your time horizon, and where you think crypto prices are going. But that said, several studies have looked at this question, and a small allocation could have a meaningful impact is what the study suggests. And that's due to crypto's historically high returns and its relatively low correlation with traditional assets like stocks and bonds. So advisors are saying a meaningful allocation in a diversified portfolio would be about 1 to 5%. And there are a couple of ways to implement this strategy with ETFs. Fidelity, iShares, Grayscale, ARK, and even Bitwise all have ETFs that would help you implement the strategy.
Yeah, crypto prices have pretty much doubled over the past year. I'm looking at Bitcoin prices hovering around $120,000 a coin. Another question for you here. I am saving for retirement by investing in a target date fund in my 401k. Is that a good idea? Bob, what do you say? Is it a good idea?
Well, so as with everything having to do with money, the answer is it always depends. But I would start here. For many young, inexperienced investors, a target date fund is a good get started fund. That is a fund, it's a type of mutual fund or ETF that's designed to simplify retirement investing. It does this by automatically adjusting its asset allocation to stocks, bonds, and cash over time, becoming more conservative as the target retirement date gets closer, which would be the target date of your presumptive retirement. So in essence, it's a one-stop shop for investing. Now, that said, these funds work well for young investors, but if you have assets outside of 401k as you age, you might have them in a Roth, you might have them in a traditional brokerage account, you might have them in an IRA. You might want to think about other ways to invest your money. You might want to go see a financial advisor who could help you put all your assets and accounts in sync with each other. And at a minimum, in your 401k, you might consider something called a managed account. So it's a good get started fund, but it's not a hold forever fund.
All right, last question with just 1 minute to go here. I read recently that Medicare Part B premiums will be $206.50 in 2026. That's up from $184.90 in 2025. How can I plan for that increase?
Yeah, so there are at least 3 things, maybe 4 things to consider. One is you can't avoid the premium increase because more often than not, it's deducted from your Social Security payment. So it's coming out of your benefit check on a monthly basis. But what you can do is to look at your 2026 healthcare budget and to look at how much you're paying for Part B, how much for Part D, how much for a Medigap policy, what are your out-of-pocket deductibles, copays, and then get a sense of what these expenses will be. Experts say that you can typically pay for those expenses out of cash flow, so that's the good news. The other is during open enrollment season, which begins October 15th, go to the Medicare Plan Finder and make sure you're selecting the right plan for you.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for Mind Your Money. Scan the QR code below to sign up for the Mind Your Money newsletter and stay tuned for Market Domination. That's coming up next.